Hey everyone, welcome to our session, Amplify Agentforce with Data Cloud Predictive AI Models. Before we get started, don't make any purchasing decisions on any forward-looking statements we might make, only on the products and services generally available. Firstly, thank you for attending our session. I do want to reward you with a session that's largely based in the tooling, not on how fancy we can make our slides, so hopefully it's quite interactive. By way of brief introduction, my name's Dave Norris. I'm a lead developer advocate at Salesforce, and I am joined on stage by Bobby. Bobby, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Bobby Brill. I'm a product manager within the Data Cloud team, but I've been doing predictive AI for quite some time at Salesforce. I've been around a while. Some of you might not know that LLMs today do not do numbers very well. So what we're going to show you here is the power of 25-year-old machine learning technology and all this latest and greatest LLM and agent work, how they come together into one cohesive application. So thank you all.
And I know you're wondering how we're going to do that, and we're going to do it through the power of dogs. So I pulled a stat from the ASPCA here, but if you're from around the world, there'll be similar stats in your country. About 1 million shelter animals are euthanized every year in the United States. And the animals on the left-hand side, those dogs, they're the dogs my family and I have adopted over the years. And every time we volunteer at a shelter, we often think, how can technology be used to help reduce this number significantly? And one of the cool ideas my wife came up with is, wouldn't it be cool if we could predict the chance of an animal being adopted? Maybe how long it's going to stay at the shelter, because then we could drive some outcomes as a business to help the rescue center prevent more animals being euthanized. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to spend most of the time in the tooling, but I'm going to use this slide to center us as we go through the demo. Everyone loves a good box and line diagram. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into Data Cloud. We're going to ingest some historical information about animals at a rescue center. And we're going to go into Model Builder, part of Data Cloud, to create a predictive model together. So this is Data Cloud. I'm just going to have a look at a data model object called animal history. It's pretty straightforward. It has attributes about an animal, things like age, breed, fur length. And because it's historical information, I know whether this animal has been adopted in the past, yes or no. And this is the information we can use to train a model. So I'm going to switch it up and go into Einstein Studio. Again, I'm still in Data Cloud. And for those of you in the audience that don't have an advanced maths degree, me included, this can seem like it's a bit of a barrier for adoption. So I'm going to create a model in front of you to show you some of the steps you can go through. So I'm going to click this Add Predictive Model button in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to go into Model Builder, and you can see I've got some options. If you do have an advanced maths degree, and you are already investing in predictive AI, you can connect to your existing hyperscalers, things like Amazon SageMaker, Google Vertex AI, and Databricks. If you don't, you can create a model from scratch, and that's what we're going to do today. First thing I need to do, what data do you want to use to train your data set? So unsurprisingly, I'm going to use the animal history data model object, because I already know whether those animals have been adopted or not. Then I can choose whether I want to filter that data set, yes or no. I'm just going to select all records. You can see there are about 10,000 in this data set. And then what field do I want to predict values for? So these are the attributes in that data model object. One of them was that adopted yes or no value. And I want to maximize the chance of an animal being adopted. So I'll select maximize yes. Select next. Then I can choose which variables I want to use to train my model. So what variables do I think will have a significant impact on an animal being adopted? Or I can let autopilot choose for me. Then I can select the algorithm. So again, if you're a data scientist, you want full control over this, you could use one of the hyperscalers, or if you're using clicks not code, it's recommending XGBoost as the recommended algorithm. Then I could just click next, I get the summary of my selections, and I'm ready to train my model. So what it's going to do is going to look at the historical data. It's going to pretend it can't see the adopted column. It's going to run through some statistical models to output whether it thinks based on those attributes that animal was adopted, yes or no, and then it can compare with the actual data to see how accurate it was. So I'm not going to save and train this model. With this data set, it takes about 20 minutes. Here's one I created earlier. I called it the Animal Adoption Prediction Model. We're going to drill in and have a look at it together. The first thing I need to know is how accurate was my model. It's done something behind the scenes. I can go in and have a look at this View Training Metrics button. It's going to open up my model, and it's going to show me right at the top how performant the model was. So I can see it's performant, and I can see that most of the time it has accurately predicted whether that historical data was either adopted no or adopted yes. The other important metric is top predictors. What are the most important variables the model uses to make those predictions? Unsurprisingly, age is number one. I'm imagining older dogs, less chance of being adopted. But I can start getting business insights straight away just from this screen, because I can see that the number of photos has a high impact on an animal being adopted. That's something I can make a material difference on. I can also see that fee has a low chance or low impact on the prediction value. So that's maybe a suggestion I can say to the rescue center, hey, if we add a small fee onto our adoptions, we can be pretty confident it's not going to impact whether they're adopted or not and help us generate revenue to rescue more animals. Okay, so after we've had a look at our training stats, the other things I can point out on this screen are things like versioning. I can see the versions of my data model. I can also start putting this prediction into the hands of the teams that need it by using prediction jobs. I can either do that in batch fashion with data in Data Cloud. So if I have some animal data, I want to run this, and I don't know whether they're going to be adopted, or as data's changing in real time in Data Cloud using streaming prediction jobs. The other thing I can do is use these recommendations. So I can specify one or more model variables for the model to give me some recommendations on, for each individual animal, how can I improve that animal's chance of adoption. And note that the variables I've used here, I've selected the ones that I, as a person, can make a material impact on. So I haven't selected age. I can't change the animal age. I can't change the breed. I can't change fur length. So I've picked number of photos, whether they're sterilized or not, and whether they've been vaccinated. So that comes important later on. You'll also notice on the overview screen, Bobby will cover this later, it's given me even predictions or suggestions on how I can improve my model. So that's pretty cool. But what else can we do with this? Well, the other thing we can do is immediately move into the Salesforce platform and see how we can start leveraging the predictions in Salesforce. So I'm going to log into Flow Builder, and I'm going to show you a flow. And this flow can pass attributes or inputs to the model I've just created, and I'm going to get some outputs. Pretty simple. Let me show you what it looks like. Here's a flow in Salesforce. It's a template-triggered flow. I'm going to pass in an animal record because I have an animal custom object in Salesforce. I've got a quick decision, does it exist? If it does exist, I have passed in an animal. I'm going to call the predictive AI model. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to click plus under an element. Then I'm going to add an action. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to scroll down till I can see Data Cloud. If I open up that folder, what do I see right at the top? I see the animal adoption prediction model I created in Data Cloud. If I select it, I don't have to remember to do anything. It's already telling me the inputs I need for this model. Pretty clever, age, breed, feed, so I can start filling in where I want that information to come from Salesforce. And at the bottom, I can start getting recommendations. That's why we selected those 3 variables in our model. We can also get the top predictors for each individual animal. All right, so let's remove this element. Show you the one I created. You can see it's just populating the variables from the animal record that's passed into the template-triggered flow from a record in Salesforce, and I've asked for 3 recommendations and 3 top predictors. Once it's called the model, it then responds with a prediction, and it's going to come in the format of a prediction, factors, which are the top predictors, and prescriptions, which are the recommendations. Now, this is a JSON blob that's going to come back, and we're going to show you how we can start using something that's pretty technical and put it into something that's very human readable. We're going to do that using Prompt Builder. So we created our flow. We're now going to create a prompt, animal adoption prediction, and that prompt is going to use that flow to ground the information that's retrieved so it can give a human-readable prediction for us. Once the prompt runs, you can see it's then going to call a large language model. And it's going to do it through the Einstein trust layer. And note that Model Builder also is the place you link custom large language models as well. We're not covering that today, but just so you know. So what does Prompt Builder look like? So Prompt Builder, I've created a prompt here. I've divided it into two sections, instructions and data. The instructions is just going to say, hey, you're going to receive a JSON payload. And I want you to adhere to some content guidelines. So for instance, I want you to format the response you give me in a very specific way. I want you to put likelihood of adoption, then top predictors, then recommendations. I've also given it some formatting guidelines, things like don't give me 4 decimal places. That's probably what I'm going to get back from the model. Give me 2. And then I can choose the data I want to use to ground this prompt. And note that it's using the flow we created. All I had to do is pick a resource, select flow, and here's the animal adoption AI model I've just shown you. And that flow is going to reach out to Data Cloud, get the predictions in that JSON format, and give it back to the prompt. What else can we do? Well, next, we can start giving this to other places in Salesforce. So a big hot topic at TDX is Agentforce. And Agentforce uses dynamic reasoning to work out which actions it needs to execute. So we're going to create an agent action called animal adoption prediction. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow Agentforce, if it thinks it needs to, is reach out to our prompt that we created to return these predictive values. So what does that look like in agent actions? I've created an animal adoption prediction action. It's of type prompt template because that's the prompt that we created. It takes an input, which is the animal S object for a single record, and passes back the prompt response, which is what I'm going to get back in a nicely formatted, human-readable format, because I've spent some time prompt engineering something that's going to return something that I can read easily. Once I've created the action, we can then go into Agent Builder. So here's a topic I've created earlier called Animal Management. I've given it a classification. Please respond to questions and services to support animal management. You can retrieve information. You can provide the likelihood of adoption, create new tasks. I've provided some instructions, some basic things to summarize animals, but I've also included an instruction that if you ask for an animal adoption prediction, then call the identify record by name to get the ID, and then call the animal adoption prediction model that we've created, prompt that we created. So putting that all together, let's give it a go. Let's ask, what is the likelihood of adoption for a particular animal? Now, in this case, what Atlas, the reasoning engine, is going to do is work out what topic to use. Hopefully, it picks the animal management topic because it's related to animals. Then it looks at the actions inside it. The actions inside it that we've created, I've added the animal adoption prediction action that we showed earlier, as well as some other things. So what it's allowed to do is then it's allowed to work out via its planner what actions to execute in what order. So in the middle, you can see what the Atlas Region Engine came out with. It selected a topic, because it was about animal management. It then decided that I gave it an animal name, not an 18-character ID. So what it needs to do to use my prompt is it needs to convert the name into an ID. So it called identify record by name a standard action first. It then retrieved the ID, and then it was allowed to call animal adoption prediction, which is our custom prompt that we created. And that's going to pass in the ID it's just retrieved. And that allows my prompt to work, and it allows it to pass into the flow, the right context of the animal. And you can see on the right-hand side, the output is nicely formatted. I can tell for this animal, it's got a low chance of adoption, 33%. And it gave me, that value doesn't mean anything to people reading this. We need to tell it what the top predictors are. Being a mixed breed reduces its chance by 20%. Not being spayed or neutered, minus 12%. And having short fur has materially impacted this animal's chance of adoption. And again, that doesn't mean anything. We need to empower frontline staff to be able to make a material difference to increase that value. And that's what the recommendations did when I selected those variables in Model Builder. It says to increase the chances of adoption, having 8 to 30 photos of the animal is going to improve the likelihood by a significant amount, 47%. So already just the frontline staff who are getting new animal cohorts into the rescue center can now be empowered to know that taking that simple action is going to make a massive material difference to this business. All right, that's enough of me talking. Let me introduce Bobby onto the stage, who's going to walk you through a little bit about the roadmap.
Thank you, David. What an awesome demo. I wanted to talk about a couple things. There are multiple patterns to get predictive models into Agent Builder or to Prompt Builder. One of those patterns, what you saw here, we looked up a record. But when we looked, if you remember the flow, we were passing variables directly into the model. That's on-demand predictions. So imagine a customer is working with this, and they're working with the agent to, not a customer, I guess. Someone's got a dog, they want to get it adopted to a different family, maybe they're a foster family of the dog. They go to the agent, they're like, I have this dog, I'm going to type in some information. Well, without having to store a record, we can actually run a prediction and give that recommendation to say, you should upload more photos. So there's multiple ways to do this. Check out the Model Builder demo booth over there. That's a way that we're doing sort of what-if analysis with the model and the agent at the same time. So it's some kind of cool stuff. So Model Builder, we're doing a lot. Even though you might hear everything about Agentforce and LLMs, Salesforce is still investing in predictive models because there's so much value there that we don't want to lose, and if we all focus on one thing. So Model Builder, we have lots of things coming. We just delivered scheduled model training. You saw a button in there to be able to schedule. That just came out a couple weeks ago. And then the really cool thing, in a couple weeks, when you create an agent reference, a reference action for an agent, there's going to be a new action called predictive models. So without having to create that flow, you can actually reference that model directly. So we're making the steps a little bit easier. And then the agent will be able to map all those inputs. So just based on the history, and because the planner is so intelligent, it can actually map the inputs to the model and give you a live prediction right there. So a couple things that are new. I talked about you saw action variables. That's a very important differentiating feature of Model Builder. We've got those training alerts to help your non-data scientists understand how to quickly iterate and build the best models. We delivered scheduled model retraining. And over there, they're talking about Data Cloud 1. If you've heard about Data Cloud, you've heard about Data Cloud 1. We are Data Cloud 1 compatible. The models built in a home org go out to all the companion orgs. So just build it once and then consume it wherever you need to. Pretty cool stuff. And then what's next? So my team is working on the agent action for predictive. So the reference action will be, hopefully, it was supposed to be in by this week. We're on this monthly release schedule, so we're just continuously releasing stuff. I don't know how you all can keep up with it, so thank you for bearing with us on that. We're going to come out with this reference action. You're just going to see it. We're going to have a trailhead, so you're going to be able to do a hands-on trail to build all this stuff. Once it's in a trailhead, you can do whatever you want. You now have this free instance to go try out Model Builder, see all the cool features. And then what's Salesforce without bringing agents everywhere? Yes, predictive models can be easy. It's point and click. But realistically, there's still a lot to learn about how do you get that data set all in the right shape? Well, we're going to work with agents to help walk you through that setup process. Give it a use case. We're going to go train that model for you. We know the data. We know the best things to use for those particular models. A lot of that is already common knowledge. Thankfully, predictive modeling is so old. These LLMs were actually trained on best practices to build a churn model, best practices to build a sales opportunity scoring model. All this best practices have been established. These models actually know it, but we're going to provide additional grounding to help. But then we want to go beyond just regression and binary classification. We're thinking of it as an AI toolkit to help any of your data. So think clustering, think forecasting, think optimization. All these things are coming coming in the future to Model Builder. So like I said, we're continuing to invest in this area. There's lots to do. LLMs do not know your historical data, but predictive modeling does. So thank you. There's a lot to learn on Trailhead. There's some Data Cloud specific hands-on trails. If you get the Data Cloud specific hands-on trail, you're going to see Einstein Studio. So there's a tab. It's a part of Data Cloud. There's no add-on. You have Data Cloud, you have Einstein Studio. If you have Agentforce, you have Data Cloud. So all the things are bundled together. Everything you saw here is, if you have Agentforce, you could do this. Thank you very much.